In 2003, archaeologists were digging in a cave on the small Indonesian island of Flores, hunting for traces of how ancient humans migrated from Asia to Australia and what their first voyages were like. Instead, they found an adult skeleton barely over a meter tall, with feet far too big for its body and a brain no larger than a grapefruit. No one in the team expected what that day would bring. At first, they thought it was a child, then a sick person with a genetic disorder. But the deeper they dug, literally and figuratively, the clearer it became. This was no anomaly. This was a different species of human, and it may still have been alive 60,000 years ago when our direct ancestors were already spreading across the planet. This is the story of how one small cave on a remote island changed what we thought we knew about who, besides us, was human. To understand the shock, we need to remember what the scientific picture looked like before 2003. It was believed that around 40,000 years ago, only one species of humans was left on Earth, Homo sapiens. The Neanderthals were already extinct by then, or nearly so. Older species, like Homo erectus and Homo habilis, had vanished hundreds of thousands of years before. Any find of a skeleton of unusually small stature was automatically explained by pathology. Microcephaly, a condition in which the brain fails to develop fully. Laron syndrome, a genetic disorder that causes dwarfism. Iodine deficiency, which leads to cretinism and stunted growth. Science simply preferred to look for explanations within what was already known, rather than admit that an entirely new species existed. That was reasonable caution. Anthropology is full of false sensations. From Piltdown Man to various doubtful finds, the discipline has been fooled before. On top of all that, the island of Flores was considered far too isolated and hard to reach, a place ancient human species could not have reached without boats and a fairly developed mind. Against that backdrop, the find of 2003 came out of the blue. It looked like a textbook case of a disease, not a new chapter of the human story. An international team of Australian and Indonesian archaeologists was working in the cave of Liang Bua on the island of Flores. A few meters down, they uncovered a nearly complete adult skeleton, given the designation LB1. Stature, about 106 centimeters. Cranial capacity, roughly 380 to 420 cubic centimeters. For comparison, a modern human brain averages 1,300 to 1,400 cubic centimeters. A chimpanzee's is only about 400. So this creature had a chimp-sized brain, yet it walked upright and was making tools. The scientists who insisted on disease pointed at the tiny brain as a sign of microcephaly, but a detailed analysis of the bones told a very different story. The wrist bones of LB1 had a primitive structure, more like the wrists of much earlier human species, even apes, than deformations from specific genetic diseases. This was the key detail. The bones were not deformed by a disease, they were simply built differently. The pelvis and legs pointed to a peculiar but fully functional way of walking, an adaptation, not a disease. Later, bones of the same small size were found in the same layers, not one individual, but several. If this had been one sick person, the pattern repeating across different individuals would be extremely unlikely. The first dating suggested about 18,000 years, meaning the species survived almost to the present day by geological standards. That would have made it one of the youngest of all human species. Later, refined research pushed the date back to 50 or 60,000 years ago. But even then, Homo floresiensis almost certainly met the arrival of Homo sapiens in Southeast Asia. One more detail that makes you pause. For centuries, the people of Flores told legends of small, hairy forest folk the size of a child, called Ebu Gogo. The stories were passed from generation to generation, told to children by the old people of the village. Before 2003, that was simple folklore. After the find, people heard it differently. The real question is not whether this species existed, but where it came from. Two main hypotheses exist. Hypothesis 1, island dwarfism. On isolated islands with limited resources, large animal species gradually shrink in body size, a well-known evolutionary mechanism called island dwarfing. On Flores, for example, they found the bones of dwarf stegodon elephants, which shrank for the same reason, just like many other island animals. According to this idea, the ancestor of Homo floresiensis was Homo erectus, a bigger-brained, bigger-bodied species that slowly shrank in isolation. Hypothesis 2. An older, more primitive ancestor. Some researchers think the foot and wrist bones are too primitive even for a shrunken erectus, and suggest the ancestor was a much earlier species, one that left Africa long before erectus, perhaps a relative of Homo habilis. Neither hypothesis is proven yet. They could not extract any DNA from the bones. The hot tropical climate destroys genetic material. In the tropics, ancient DNA breaks down in years, not millennia. So the exact answer to who the hobbits came from may stay unknown for a long time. The most unsettling question: did Homo floresiensis ever cross paths with our ancestors? If the finds are 50 to 60,000 years old, and Homo sapiens reached Southeast Asia around the same time, or a little later, then in theory the two species could have met on the same island. No direct evidence of contact has been found yet, no tools of one species in the layers of another, no traces of conflict or interbreeding. If the two species had crossed, we should see traces in the bones or in the genome, but we do not. But that, as recently as 50,000 years ago, several human species could have lived on Earth at the same time. Sapiens, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and maybe the Flores hobbits, forces us to rethink the picture. There was no single smooth line from ape to human. There was a whole variety of species, side by side, and we are just one of them, the one that happened to survive, and survival was luck, not destiny. The Flores story began with one skeleton in a cave, and it ended by changing what it means to be human. A brain the size of a grapefruit did not stop them from making stone tools. A body barely over a meter tall did not stop them surviving there for tens of thousands of years. On an island, with limited resources, surrounded by ocean for thousands of generations. This is not a deviation from the norm. It is proof there was far more than one way to be human. If science was wrong about how many species of humans walked the earth just tens of thousands of years ago, what else is waiting in the caves we have not yet opened? If this story grabbed you, subscribe, because more finds are coming that will rewrite human history. Next video, the White Sands footprints that forced a rethink of how the Americas were settled.